I did not cross the narrow sea to half-rule or to govern by fear and famine. I have seen cities sit atop piles of skulls and call that peace. I will not mistake quiet for consent. If I am to mend a world that has been shattered again and again, I must set a course so clear that even those who doubt my right can judge my reign by what it delivers to their hearths and their fields. I will speak plainly. My purpose is to break the habit of cruelty that passes for statecraft in these lands and to replace it with law, bread, and mercy that does not forget itself when tested. I have named Jon Snow my hand because he knows what it is to choose duty over desire, because he speaks when others remain silent, and because his name opens doors in the north that my banners and my dragons could only batter down. Fire requires a hearth, and a hearth requires stone. He will be the stone. I will be the fire. We will build, not merely burn. I have 3 strategic objectives, and everything else is stewarding their success. First, the rule of law must be more than a phrase spoken in a gilded hall. It must be a living thing that travels so far and so often that it wears grooves into the King's Road and the Ocean Road and every muddy village path. Second, no household shall go hungry. Bread is not a gift. It is a sign that the crown understands its simplest duty. I did not free cities across the sea to preside over a freed people folding into starvation. Third, a lasting peace with dignity for North and South alike. A settlement that does not rely on the lifespan of my dragons or the forbearance of my temper. These 3 pillars will sustain the arches of every policy. Electing officials to carry royal justice beyond the capital, storing grain in regional granaries with transparent ledgers and fair prices, and crafting alliances that bind my enemies by their interest in prosperity, not by their fear of retribution. The first 100 days are a crucible. In those days, the realm will decide whether my promises are merely banners in the wind. I will begin with an amnesty wide enough to cover all who lay down arms within 30 days, coupled to a narrow and public list of those who must face trial for particular acts: the burning of non-combatants, the violation of guest right, the organized theft of relief grain. Mercy without memory is naivete. Vengeance without measure is a slow death for any kingdom. Jon will convene a great hearing in the Red Keep each 7th day where petitions for pardon are read aloud and answered on the record. I will reserve the right of final clemency, but I will also reserve the responsibility to hear from those harmed. The people will watch us weigh. They will see that the scale is not rigged. Within the same 100 days, I will send forth 4 royal circuits of justice, each led by a sworn judge and escorted by a detachment sufficient to ensure their safety, but not so large as to be a provocation. The judges will be trained in a code reduced to the essential crimes and the essential remedies: murder, rape, theft, unlawful seizure of lands or persons, fraud in trade, refusal to pay tax lawfully levied, the harboring of slavers. Their language will be common, not cloaked in maester's knots. Each circuit will carry scribes to record verdicts and clerks to post them in seps, inns, and markets. Those who cannot read will hear them spoken at noonday bell. If a circuit fails to arrive anywhere within 40 days of its published schedule, the small folk of that place may travel to the nearest garrison and demand the circuit's attendance, and the garrison commander will be held accountable to command discipline if he refuses. The law will travel faster than rumor. I will restore the honor and function of the crown's coin by opening the books. On the 10th day of my reign, my master of coin will present to me, to the hand, and to a council of representatives from each of the 7 kingdoms a ledger that lists what we owe and to whom. The Iron Bank will have its due, and it will have it on a schedule that does not drain our lifeblood in winter. I will not pay debt with famine. We will renegotiate terms by offering what associate bankers desire above all: predictability backed by grain and by ships. In these 100 days, I will issue a decree promising that half of the crown's interest payments for the first year will be paid in kind as grain carried to Bravos and Pentos by royal convoy at fair prices set in coin, not in the whims of middlemen. We will buy our own debt more cheaply by making our ports busy. Bread must move. The riverlands still bear wounds. The reach is our belly. I will appoint a master of grain as a cabinet office equal in rank to coin and ships, responsible for stockpiles, seed loans, harvest tallies, mill upkeep, and the fair price. In the first 100 days, we will count granaries, we will repair the ones with sound walls, and we will condemn those that spoil more than they save. We will dredge the lower Mander, the Blackwater, and the green blood where silting has choked the same boats we now beg to run. Every lord who holds a riverbank will receive a written duty with a date, a work gang size, and a stipend paid from crown coffers upon certified completion. A lord who claims poverty may petition the master of grain for timber or stone, not coin, and he will receive it if his last 3 years' tax ledgers are honest. A lord who lies will see his tithe remitted directly by royal clerks on his lands until his debt is paid twice over. I will teach stewardship with carrots and with switches. John will manage the ordering of the court and the quiet binding of quarrels. He will meet with each great house not as a conqueror but as one who has bled beside them against the common dead. He will bring the lords to table in groups that cannot escape one another's eyes. A Westerland's bannerman across from a Riverland's castellan, a Stormlander beside a Dornish envoy, the stony Sile. NCE of the Vale softened by the warmth of the Reach. There will be wine. There will be no secret promises he does not write down and place in my hand. In the first 100 days he will secure oaths renewed for a year and a day with explicit conditions. Faithful delivery of levies and taxes at the agreed rate, non-interference with royal courts, and the release of any persons enslaved unlawfully in war or debt. Should a house break this covenant, it knows the penalty. Should it keep it, it earns public commendation announced at the Mother's Day festival when we honor women who kept families alive through the long winter. A throne is not a person. It is a room that must be filled with work. I will replace the old small council's habits with a functional cabinet that carries portfolios defined by what the people experience. My hand oversees it but does not smother it. The master of grain, as I have said, holds the province of harvests, mills, riverworks, and the royal reserve. The master of ships commands the royal fleet, coastal defense, and the harbor masters. She will be judged not by the number of galleys built, but by the number of ship days on patrol and the speed with which convoys depart when ordered. The Master of Laws leads the Judges' Guild, trains circuited jurists, and keeps the code short and legible. He will cull any statute that exists only to line a pocket. The Master of Coin keeps ledgers the way a septon keeps prayers, and he will share summaries monthly with the cabinet so that grain knows what coin can afford and ships know which repairs must wait. The Mistress of Whispers is accountable for external threats and internal plots. Her brief includes the mapping of wildfire caches concealed beneath the city and the buying of loyalties where loyalty cannot be compelled by honor alone. The Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard, chosen for fidelity more than for fame, protects my person and enforces the limits I will set upon the presence of my dragons in a human city. The Master of Roads and Works, a portfolio newly minted, takes charge of bridges, causeways, post stations, and the rebuilding of King's Landing's waterworks and sewers so that the city stops poisoning itself and the bay. Each portfolio carries a measure by which it lives. I will tell them before they swear and every month after. I will not be dazzled by long words and short results. The Master of Grain will report tonnage in and tonnage out, the price of a loaf in 10 markets, and the number of seed loans granted and repaid. The Master of Ships will report the number of vessels seaworthy, the time to muster a convoy from order to departure, and the number of pirate sails sighted and taken. The Master of Laws will report cases heard, acquittals, penalties, and days from complaint to verdict. The Master of Coin will report the ratio of revenue to expenditure, the age of arrears, and the cost of debt service as a share of total income. Whispers will report plots foiled and houses placated. He will also tell me frankly where he has planted spies so that I may measure the ethics of my own reign against the necessities it faces. The Master of Roads will report miles of road laid, bridges repaired, and hours it takes a post rider to travel from King's Landing to Winterfell, Sunspear, Gulltown, and Old Town. Justice is not a performance piece in the capital. It is clarity and speed joined to care. I will reform the courts so that those who wish to accuse or defend need not sell a cow to do so. A schedule of fees, small and infrequently applied, will be posted in every hearing place, and the judges will be forbidden to collect them. Royal clerks will manage them to remove temptation. Trial by combat will be abolished in the capital for crimes carrying death or loss of limb. Where faith demands an ordeal, faith may supervise an ordeal of truth spoken before the gods would or the sept. But the judgment will rest on evidence and testimony weighed in daylight. Circuits will carry portable prisons sufficient to hold the condemned no longer than a fortnight. Thereafter, either the sentence is carried out or the prisoner is handed to a district keep chosen by lot, to prevent those prisons becoming private dungeons for lords' revenge. For crimes of war, we will hold a special assize of winter, not to humiliate enemies but to mark the difference between war and murder. The list of named crimes is closed. No man will be surprised by a law minted to trap him after the fact. I will sign the code and keep a copy in the Red Keep and in each great city, and the High Septon will keep one as well so that justice is seen to be common ground. Grain policy will be much more than a warehouse key. We will create a royal reserve size to carry the capital and the next 4 largest cities through 4 months of failed harvest. We will divide reserves among regional granaries to avoid the folly of putting all our hope in a single vault. We will purchase at a fair harvest price set before reaping, not after, to give farmers certainty, and we will sell at a narrow band above that price to preserve incentives without permitting usury. Hoarding will be a crime in winter months defined by proclamation. The penalty is seizure of the hoard at fair price and public posting of the offender's name. Seed loans will be expanded, secured by next year's tax. We will distribute millstones and repair wheels where the rush of the stream can be captured with simple labor. The master of grain will coordinate with ships to ensure that food can move from the reach and the riverlands to the stormlands and the vale when snows make roads impassable. I will reopen the Queen's kitchens in King's Landing with a simple rule: a bowl of broth and a portion of bread for any citizen who arrives before the noon bell, funded by a surcharge on high-table feasts served within the city walls. Those who host 100 guests can afford 100 bowls for those who wash their scraps. As to faith, I will bend neither the knee nor the realm's neck to a single god. This land carries old gods, new gods, drowned gods, red gods, and gods of the kitchen hearth for all I know. The crown's concern is that faith not take up the sword again against its people. I will recognize the faith of the Seven as a great institution of learning, charity, and moral counsel. I will not recognize any militia that answers to a sept rather than to the crown. The faith militant will lay down arms. Its bravest can enter the army as chaplains and medics, for they already know discipline and the courage to approach suffering. I will meet the High Septon and ask for his blessing upon our work with grain, our assizes, and our rebuilding of the city's sewers and aqueducts. He may speak in the great September once a moon of mercy and truth. I will listen. In the north, where the old gods watch without words, I will fund the repair of godswoods toppled by war and respect the right of northerners to swear by the heart tree or not at all. The red priests will be welcome to light their fires so long as their flames do not reach human flesh. The drowned gods' priests will see me in Pike to discuss the turning of reeving into licensed fishing and copper diving. If they insist that drowning is sacred, let it be a cup of salt water drunk and spit, no lungs filled to bursting. The faiths of the realm will not be humiliated. They will be harnessed to the good of the people. The nobility will test whether my promises of mercy align with their desire to retain what they hold. Some cannot be kept and still call it justice. Some can be kept if they agree to be bound by the same law as the poorest herdsman. I will confirm titles for those who derive them by sworn succession or great council, not by slaughter. Where titles were seized in the chaos, I will convene arbitration led by John and the Master of Laws, with a rule that an innocent small folk's tenure on land longer than 5 winters carries strong weight. I will restore wardenships as instruments of defense, not of private war. The Warden of the North will be named with the consent of the great northern houses, the Warden of the South likewise among Reach, Stormlands, Dorne, and the Westerlands, with the Vale and Riverlands advising on the Warden of the East and West. Wardens will train musters, maintain roads, and store winter supplies. They will not levy tolls without my assent. If they do, I will take the toll for the crown for a full year. I will not take hostages from every house as if they were slavers' stock. I will ask for fosters freely offered, and I will take them into my household and into others, mixing the bloodlines in friendship, not in chains. Marriage alliances will be encouraged to knit this fabric closer. I will bless those that bridge regions most divided. I will create a noble's oath not to me alone but to the realm's code. It will require 3 duties beyond the usual. First, to publish their own household laws for the governance of their lands, to be consistent with the realm's code and posted in markets and septs. Second, to submit an annual ledger of levies and taxes and how they were used, We will not pry into their household expenses, but we will tally what they took by right and whether they used it for roads, mills, garrisons, and winter stores as promised. Third, to accept the circuit judge's verdicts and to confine any convicted person in facilities that meet royal standards of cleanliness and safety. In return, I will recognize the dignity of their offices and the honor of their houses. I will seat them in council on matters of roads, rivers, and war. I will ask them to swear to shut their gates to slavers and to preach the same in their halls. Nobility that serves is nobility that lasts. Foreign posture must proceed from a simple truth. Westeros has been too proud and too insular for its own good. The free cities are not a distant rumor. They are neighbors whose bankers and captains can make or break a winter's peace. My aim is to make the narrow sea a market and not a frontier. With Bravos I will seek an accord. The Crown guarantees safe convoy for Bravosi merchants on our coasts and a fair court to hear their disputes. In return, the Iron Bank restructures Crown debt over 15 years at a fixed rate lower than war has forced upon us, with the grain and timber of the Riverlands accepted as partial payment at agreed prices. With Pentos and Tyrosh, we will negotiate a tariff on luxury imports that funds harbor works and lantern towers so that storms kill fewer sailors. With Lys and Myr, where slavery hides behind thinner veils, I will propose a pact of inspection for ships that seek our harbors. No chains below deck, no pages of sail in false ledgers, or the vessel is seized and the owner find the value of ship and cargo. With Volantis, proud in her elephants and her fires, I will send an embassy of dignified mercy. Freedmen who built my cities across the sea, to show what prosperity looks like unchained. Dorne will be treated not as an outlier but as a fulcrum. Its ports are gates to the summer sea. Its people know the price of alienating neighbors better than most. I will confirm Dornish law in all its peculiarities, including equal inheritance for women, and in return I will ask that Dorne host a permanent royal delegation at Sunspear's Shadow City to adjudicate the often bloodless trade quarrels that fester into feuds. The Iron Islands must be turned from reaving to honest labor. I will license wrecking openly, under the watch of the master of ships, so that the islands profit from storms without luring them. I will fund the refit of longships into fishing vessels and require that every longhouse maintain nets and lines and accounting books that show more fish than plunder. If they do, I will remit a portion of their taxes for 10 years and celebrate their catches at court. If they do not, they will meet not only royal hips but also the raised fists of coastal towns that know better. The watch on the wall must be restored to dignity and to a clear purpose. If the others have receded into shadow, the shadow remains. The wall is a symbol of a promise. I will not allow it to be turned into a quarry for convenient stone. We will resupply Castle Black and Eastwatch and man them with volunteer criminals who have earned early commutation by good behavior in labor service, seasoned with honor-born men who choose duty over inheritance. The free folk will be encouraged to settle in the gift with rights to farm and trade. In return, they will serve as rangers and guides for the watch, their pay half coin and half in seed and tools. Jon will have particular charge of this policy. I will trust his word when he tells me whether we go too fast or too slow. Military doctrine must respect the realm's fear of fire and the necessity of steel. My dragons will not be instruments of casual terror. I will establish a royal order of dragon keepers drawn from those who have tended stables and hawks, men and women of patience more than pride. The rules of dragon employment will be simple and public. They are to be used for reconnaissance, for the destruction of enemy siege engines in open war, for the burning of ships flagged by the master of ships as pirates when no crew can be saved by lesser means, and as symbols of sovereign presence over rebellious castles when I ride above their walls and bid them yield. They will not be used within the walls of King's Landing or any great city, save to quench fires from above by fanning smoke away to break its hunger. If a city rebels and slaughters my officers, it will face siege engines and sappers and hunger, not indiscriminate fire. I have seen what fire can do when it forgets its purpose. I will not forget. The Unsullied will form the spine of a regular army, but they will not garrison every holdfast. They do not know every hill and ford. Westeros' strength is local knowledge organized. I will professionalize a royal line, 5,000 men at readiness paid in coin every month, with billets rotated among the crownlands and the approaches to the capital. They will train with Westerosi infantry to standardize signals, formations, and the use of shields against arrows and scorpions. The Dothraki who have chosen to remain will form a light cavalry corps sworn to a charter. No foraging without pay, no riding through fields of grain in season, no taking of gifts without receipt signed by a royal quartermaster. Those who cannot abide these rules will be offered gold to return east or land to tend with their families, where speed and horsemanship turn to the benefit of the post and the message. Garrisons will be smaller but sharper. Each castle that has been named as a royal garrison will maintain a standing complement with a third of its men drilling at any given time, a third on duty, and a third off duty but within call. No more sleepy towers where ravens turn old around their perches. We will create a school of sappers in King's Landing to train miners and engineers capable of building and breaking walls, of bridging marshes, and of sinking wells that do not foul themselves. The Navy will be reconstituted with a focus on patrol craft and convoy escorts. Great war galleys are coffins for pride. We will build lantern towers along the coasts where rocky teeth have taken too many keels. The master of ships will establish a signal code of lantern and flag so that a cutter can call for help and receive it before her hull splits. The naval yard will be rebuilt not for show but for throughput. Haul, scrape, pitch, and return to sea. Intelligence will be brought out of the shadows enough to be accountable. The mistress of whispers will map slavers' routes, noble discontent, and foreign meddling. She will also be tasked with a duty beyond daggers, warning of plague. The last war did not only break walls. It loosed pests and rot. We will fund a corps of chirurgeons and herbalists who travel with the royal circuits, teaching the boiling of water, the isolation of the feverish, and the disposal of bodies with dignity that does not poison wells. In war, logistics is victory. The quartermasters will be selected for their lack of poetry and their love of lists, and they will be punished swiftly if they grow fat while soldiers' belts tighten. Any reign worth the breath it takes has a clear ledger of risk and ready mitigations. Not a prayer that wins will be fair. Famine is the oldest enemy. If the winter bites hard, our reserves will be tested beyond their design. If they empty too quickly, we will implement rationing by household headcount certified by Sept and by Reeve, with the burden of proof on me to show the reserves exist rather than rumors of their plenty. Seed reserves will be held sacred. To eat them is to eat next year's hope. Pestilence is as old as famine. We will establish quarantine houses at the gates of our great cities and post chirurgeons at the ports to inspect incoming crews. We will burn bedding, not bodies, and we will fund the families who lose loved ones so that desperation does not drive them to riot. Rebellion is predictable where pride meets hunger and where old slights are nursed like coals. The mitigation is not to terrify but to separate the ambitious few from the many they lead. I will give the many something worth keeping that a rebel cannot promise. Fair courts, cheap bread, safe roads. For the ambitious few, I will offer paths upward that do not require treason. Commissions in the Royal Army, offices in the Roads and Works Corps, seats on river commissions, and a chance to bring honor to their houses by building rather than sacking. If swords are drawn, I will be swift, and I will show the realm that swiftness can be paired with proportion. The Iron Bank could squeeze us to display its power. We mitigate by over-communicating our plan and delivering early payment. NTS to show good faith, by creating domestic bonds so that nobles and guilds invest in Crown Grain and Harbor Works and receive steady returns that tie their fortunes to mine. Assassination is a coward's strategy and a ruler's constant risk. My guard will be doubled without turning me into a ghost to my people, and I will vary my route and my meals. I will eat what the poor eat once a fortnight in the Queen's kitchens. Anyone who poisons my broth will have to poison 1,000 bowls, and then the realm itself would rise as my avenger. The greatest risk is the dragons themselves, my children and my instruments. They are not tools to be put away on a shelf, and they are not gods to be worshipped with a city's fear. The mitigation is ritual and rule. They will be fed outside city walls at scheduled times. When they fly above a town, they will do so at height and speed, never lingering to menace. I will maintain a ledger of flights with purpose and outcomes so that if I break my own rules, the record stands to accuse me. The second greatest risk is succession. I will not live forever, and if I died tomorrow, I do not want the realm to learn the habit of murder as a means of choosing a crown. We will convene a great council within a year to write into law the order of succession and the means by which a regency is established. If the lords will not agree, then I will put before them a simple proposal: a council of regents composed of the hand, the masters of grain and laws, and the wardens, with the high septon and the maester of the Red Keep as councillors without vote. Even the proud can accept a structure that gives them a voice. I will know whether we are failing or teaching ourselves to succeed by a set of measures that cannot be sweeter than the facts they describe. If the price of a loaf in King's Landing, Old Town, Gulltown, White Harbor, and Lannisport remains within a narrow band for 6 months, then our grain policy works. If one market strays, I will ride the charts until I find the leak. If the time from complaint to verdict in the royal circuits averages less than 40 days, we are delivering justice. If it stretches, we are making excuses. If convoys must be ordered twice to depart, the master of ships is failing in what only discipline can cure. If the revenue we take matches the ledger we publish within 5%, our tax collection is honest. If it does not, someone is stealing from me and from every hungry child in the city. If the road between the capital and Old Town takes a post rider less than 8 days by summer and less than 12 by winter by the end of the first year, the master of roads has earned his tea. If the number of cases of plague reported by chirurgeons decline across 3 moons, our public health works. If they rise, we shift grain and men to the afflicted region without delay. My roadmap for the next 18 months is not a poet's metaphor. It is a calendar that will be judged by markets and harvest wagons. In the first 3 months, I will seat the cabinet, publish the code, launch the circuits, announce the amnesty with named exceptions, open the Queen's kitchens, and begin dredging the worst silted stretches of our rivers. John will preside over the first great hearing and the first council of lords grouped across old grudges. The master of coin will present the debt ledgers and sail a mission to Bravos with terms in his pocket and seed bills of lading to prove our seriousness. The master of ships will put to sea every hull that can still float to show the flag along our coasts and gather reports of wreckers and reavers. The master of roads will hire foremen in each region and present a list of bridges in danger of collapse. I will choose 10 to be repaired immediately with crown funds. In months 4 to 6, the circuits will return with reports. We will adjust the code if it has trapped the innocent or given shelter to the guilty. We will set fair harvest prices and announce them by crier and parchment. The master of grain will arrange the prepositioning of seed loans, with barns painted with the royal crest so farmers know where to queue and where not to be tricked. Convoys will run twice to Bravos and once to Pentos with timber and grain, and we will return with pitch, tar, iron fittings, and coin. We will repair the first lantern tower and light it with a ceremony that means something to sailors. The mistress of whispers will deliver me a map of slavers' routes. The master of ships will begin a campaign to shadow and seize their vessels. John will convene the wardens designate to hammer out a garrison rotation that turns pride toward the common defense. By months 7 to 12, we will see the first results in bread and in peace. The harvest will come. We will measure yields against expectations and adjust the royal reserve accordingly. If the harvest is poor, then rationing begins early, and we call on the free cities to sell us grain at the prices we promised to respect when their harvests are poor. We will hold the assize of winter for war crimes. I will open it and I will close it. If it drags into cruelty, I will stop it. The master of roads will have laid down the first 100 miles of repaired road, and we will then build post stations every 20 miles with stables and wells. The Navy will have taken or driven off enough pirates that merchants begin to trust us not just with our words. In King's Landing, the sewers will stink less and the water will run clearer. The first cholera season that passes without mass graves will be a victory as great as any field of war. In months 13 to 18, we will attempt stability rather than dramatics. We will hold the Great Council on succession and on the confirmation of the code. We will issue the first annual nobles' ledgers, publicly praising those who spent on roads and garrisons and naming those whose accounts are lies. We will review debt payments against the schedule agreed the Iron Bank. If we have exceeded our promise, we will renegotiate to lower our rate further by prepayment in goods that secure Bravosi interests. The royal line will be drilled to a common doctrine: shield wall, pike hedge, fire discipline for archers, and the measured use of siege. The Dothraki light cavalry will be tested in exercises designed to use their speed as eyes and knives while restraining the old habit of indiscriminate riding. The Watch will have winter stores adequate for 6 months. The free folk will be settling in the gift with royal inspectors checking that they are not cheated of tools and seed by middlemen. I will render for you the scenarios I foresee so that when one begins to unfold you cannot say your queen dreamt only dreams of sunshine. In the best season, the harvest proves fair, rains well-timed, and the royal reserve is filled to the marks we paint on our granary walls. The price of bread holds steady in the markets, and the gossips have less fuel for their malice. The circuits return with tales of village disputes settled and a few notorious brigands hanged. And in 3 regions a sergeant who once served an enemy house now serves the royal arm. Bravos accepts our terms, and their captains praise the speed and order of our harbors. The Iron Islands bring in their fishing quotas and boast of record catches, not because they hunger for praise, but because they have learned that public pride in honest work fills a hall better than secret pride in stolen goods. In this best season, dragons are a rumor most days, ships are a fact, and the hand is seen traveling more than sitting. My greatest act in such a season is restraint. I do not add edicts. I improve the ones we have. I do not insist upon dramatic arrests. I insist upon clear appointments. A realm that holds steady will begin to believe not in me alone, but in itself. In the common season, neither cruel nor kind, the harvest is patchy. The Reach fills its barns. The Riverlands collect less than hoped. The Vale and the North grumble at the prospect of convoy dependence. The Royal Reserve is tapped, but not emptied. Bread prices rise within the bands we set but press against the top. Piracy flares along the Broken Arm and the Stepstones. We sink some and lose a cutter in a storm that takes 20 men I will name at court. The assize convicts several men that even their houses cannot convincingly defend, and their executions are efficient. The last words shouted against me in the square spin out into the air and die. The Iron Bank keeps to the schedule. They write in their hard script and ask for small clarifications. Nobles produce ledgers, some with figures that do not add. We find them rather than seize their coats of arms. In this common season, the danger is drift. We push back by focusing on the roadworks, on the post, on the clear evidence that people feel in their bones. That it takes fewer days to travel and fewer coins to feed children. We emphasize that most change is visible in the bread line and the mile marker, not in the heralds shouting. In the hard season, the harvest fails in 2 regions at once. A blight takes root in damp granaries we failed to repair in time. I will speak that failure aloud. The price of a loaf threatens to leap. The Royal Reserve begins to look less like a storehouse and more like a counting board where I move pebbles and hope. We ration strictly but without cruelty. Each household receives a chit marked weekly. The black market sniffs opportunity, and my circuits switch from judge to inspector working with the master of grain. We seize hoards at fair price and post the names of the hoarders. A second offense adds shame and service. Convoys from across the sea are delayed by storms. 2 ships return to port with broken masts and the stink of salt and loss. The Iron Bank still wants its coin. We send them timber and wool instead and beg patience with a promise of double convoys in the spring if the storms abate. Pirates sense weakness. The master of ships prioritizes escorts for grain and leaves other cargoes to fend as they can. We are honest about it. The faith grows restive and speaks of divine displeasure. I go to the sept not to genuflect but to stand among the hungry and ladle broth. I do not wear silk. My dragons fly above the city to remind the thieving few that we have eyes. This season is saved not by a miracle but by the willingness of stubborn people to protect one another under the eye of a government they believe is trying, not stealing. If we emerge with the reserve above zero and the price of bread under riot, we have won the right to try again with more wisdom. There is another season, darker. War returns, not because I desire it but because someone else mistakes my patience for weakness. A great house, let us say, the old lions in their hills, calculates that my base is shallow and that winter's suffering has sapped my trust. They raise banners under the language of ancient rights and new grievances. They find allies who would rather ask forgiveness after victory than permission before rebellion. In this season, my restraint must remain my north, but my swiftness must return as well. I ride, I do not merely send. My dragons circle but do not burn villages. We cut supply lines, we take fords, we hold bridges. The royal army demonstrates that a realm trained to build can also stand and fight in formation. We capture a castle through treachery not purchased but inspired by a promise that we will not sack and burn and salt the ground in revenge. We convene a field court for named culprits and we keep it short. We require indemnities calculated in grain and in road-building crews. The nobles who supported the rebellion but did not lead it are fined and sent home to mend their lands. I do not allow myself the vanity of a parade. I allow myself the relief of a casualty list shorter than it might have been and send the best of those soldiers to teach next why. Ears recruits. If I govern well, this season frightens more lords than it inspires. I will speak of the one season no plan can master, the season of my own error. If I break faith, if I use the dragons to punish criticism, if I allow favorites to gorge while others pay, if I hide the ledgers, if I make law a robe to be thrown over friends and a noose for enemies, then the realm will know. The measures I put in place will accuse me by their silence. Bread prices will lie. Post riders will carry whispers, not letters. Judges will sit in empty squares because no one believes their verdicts hold. John will tell me, if he remains my hand, and if I refuse to hear, he will lay down the pin in front of all. That is what I have asked of him and promised him the right to do. This is not a play in which I am always noble. It is a government that will be watched by the very people it claims to serve, and I will give them the means to watch. If we succeed, it will not be because I am the mother of dragons. It will be because we have become a realm that feeds its children, judges fairly, keeps its roads passable, and pays its debts without selling its soul. It will be because a northern hand and a queen from across the sea learned to use their different strengths without mistrusting each other's roots. In the world I aim to make, the great houses will argue less about who sits in the chair and more about how many miles the next bridge shortens a journey. The free cities will talk about our ports with admiration and our creditors with respect. The watch will grumble and carry on, which is their way of saying they are not starving. The faith will sing hymns to mercy that sound to some like simple daily bread. My dragons will be the sky's rumor, and the ground will belong to those who tend it. That is the blueprint, not for the glory of a reign but for the quiet competence that makes a people forget the taste of fear. To bind it all one last time into the work I mean to do. I will keep the law traveling, the granaries full enough, the ships escorting, the nobles honest or punished, the faiths unarmed and honored, the army disciplined, the dragons governed, the spies ethical, the ledgers open, and the hand empowered to say no when my temper says yes. If we falter, we will tell the realm how we faltered and what we will change. If we are attacked, we will answer without forgetting what we built. If we are tempted to use terror to accelerate obedience, we will remember that such obedience cracks at the first hard frost. My measures and milestones are not a poet's garland. They are pebbles on a road that the poorest among us can step upon without stumbling. Every moon, the cabinet will report. Every season, the hand will speak to the realm. Every year, the Great Council will convene to approve or censure. A queen who is certain she cannot err is already erring. A queen who builds a system that endures her errors is doing the only immortal work there is. Now to details the people feel touch their sleeves. When I say bread prices must remain within a narrow band, I mean that a loaf shall not cost more than one day's labor for the unskilled, and if it does, then the master of grain must explain why in a voice the market can hear. When I say justice within 40 days, I mean that if a judge cannot attend a village because of snow or flood, he must send writs to the nearest sept or godswood and appoint a local elder to take sworn statements until the roads open. When I say ships must sail when ordered, I mean captains who delay without cause will lose their charters and their place in the convoy, and the next captain will be named in their stead. When I say nobles' ledgers, I mean we will teach their clerks to tally honestly. We are at war with sloth and with fraud, not with ink. The 18 months will end, as all plans end, with a review. If the harvest has improved and the roads have shortened journeys. If the winter passing through the capital leaves fewer graves than the last. If the Iron Bank clerk's tight mouth has softened into something that might be called a smile. If the Queen's kitchens see fewer lines because there is more bread at home. If slavers curse our coast as unfriendly to their trade. if the watch grumbles about the tedium of patrols instead of the absence of boots, if a mother in a river village tells her child that the queen is the one whose judges came and listened, not the one whose dragon cast a shadow, then we will have made something worth defending. And if some of those promises go slack, then the remedy is not a new speech. It is the stubborn repetition of what works, the willingness to change what does not, and the humility to say aloud what every true ruler knows but few admit, that we are servants of a thing larger than any crown, of the order that lets people live ordinary lives. I have ridden at the head of roaring columns and sat amid the silence of ruins. I prefer markets. I prefer fields. I prefer the sound of hammers on hulls and of wheels on roads. These are my banners. Let the realm judge me by them. Finally, I will say this to my hand as he pins the badge, and to the lords as they watch my dragons will above a sun gone pale in winter. We will not win every skirmish with fate. We will lose good people to cold, to sea, to steel, and perhaps to my misjudgment. But we will not lose our purpose. When a man from the Stormlands writes that the river rose and took the bridge and asks how he is to cross to market, the answer will not be a riddle. It will be a new bridge. When a widow from the Riverlands stands in a square and asks for her seed loan, the answer will not be a sermon. It will be a sack of grain and a clerk with a charcoal stick to mark the ledger. When a captain of a Braavosi caravel complains of fees levied by 3 jurisdictions at once, the answer will be a single harbor law posted at the dock. When a septon asks whether the soul can be free if the belly is EMP, I will say the crown sees both and will feed the body while leaving the soul to its own journey. When a young soldier in the royal line asks what we mean by honor, I will say, to fight only when required, to protect those who cannot, and to obey the rules we have set, even when no one is watching, because our own eyes must be the first to judge us. This is how I will rule, and this is how I will be ruled by the rules I have declared. With Jon as my hand, with a cabinet built to function instead of flatter, with a code that moves, with granaries that hold steady against hunger, with ships that carry not only anger but food, with a posture of peace that does not invite predation, with a military that answers to law and not to appetite, with a register of risks and a plan to meet them, with measures that humble our pride when they show we have not yet done enough, with a calendar that keeps us honest, and with an imagination that peers into the hard seasons and readies kindness and steel for both. I will not be a queen of ashes. I will be a queen of roads and loaves and writs, of lantern towers and law, of ships that depart when ordered and return with holds full of goods the realm can use. If the seven smile, if the old gods watch with unblinking approval, if the drowned god gurgles his grudging respect, if the red god's fires burn for healing rather than for spectacle, perhaps in 20 years no one will remember the fear with which they learned my name. They will remember the first time the river carried grain to their town even after a poor harvest. They will remember the day the judge came and spoke in words they understood. They will remember that their queen kept accounts and kept her word. That is enough. That is the wheel I am willing to turn. To make my promises real to those who will never see a court, I will begin with a work that seems dull to lords and bright to any farmer. A true survey. Not a rumor of acres, but a measured map that shows which fields flood, which roads drown in spring, which bridges carry more carts than they were meant to bear. We will train survey crews drawn from masons, foresters, and maester's apprentices in the simple arts of chain, compass, and star. They will carry royal seals and travel with the circuits of justice for safety. Each 100 they measure will be noted in a ledger kept at the Sept or Godswood and copied to the Red Keep and to Old Town. When a lord claims he cannot repair a bridge because his lands are poor, we will look to the survey before we listen to his poetry. The survey is not a spy. It is a mirror. When you plant in honest ground, you need not fear a mirror. Coin is trust cast in metal. I will not mint trust with tin and call it silver. The master of coin will recall debased dragons and stags at a fair ratio, and the mint will resume with public assays that any guild may witness. We will strike coin to a standard of weight and purity posted in every great market. A dragon of fixed silver, a stag of fixed copper alloyed for strength, and gold reserved for trade large enough that most men will never see it save at a distance. Coin clippers will face penalty equal to thieves who steal a loaf from a child. Counterfeiters will be treated as traitors, for they undermine the realm's marrow. Yet we will not drown the poor in new coin fees, We will allow old coin for taxes at posted equivalences for a season while the mint catches up. Trust that returns slowly endures. Taxes must be collected in ways that shorten resentment rather than feed it. I will abolish the farming of taxes by private collectors wherever the crown has reach enough to do its work directly. When we cannot, we will bind collectors to public bonds and publish their fees. We will set the land tithe at a rate that does not eat seed, collected after harvest based on the survey and the sworn statements of village reeves overseen by royal clerks who rotate so they cannot build cozy nests. We will levy customs on luxuries, spices, silk, rare dyes, wines, so that the coin for feasts funds the bowls of the hungry. We will avoid taxes that choke trade before it starts. A realm that kills the goose for its gold learns the taste of feathers. King's Landing must cease to be a tinderbox disguised as a city. I will lay down building rules that strike fear into sloth, not into the poor. Thatch and pitch inside the innermost wards will be replaced with tile and lime wash as streets are widened, fire breaks cut, and wells deepened and covered. We will pay stipends to roofers and tilers for each thatch roof converted, with the money raised by a levy on those whose manses already enjoy tile and who benefit most from a city that does not burn. We will organize a fire watch separate from the city watch, trained in bucket chains, hook and ladder, and the use of sand, not panic. The alchemists will surrender wildfire stores to vaults sealed with 2 keys, one held by the Mistress of Whispers, one by the Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard, and any use beyond the quenching of dockside shipworms will require my hand and the hand sealed together. Wildfire is cleverness without wisdom. Wisdom will have the last word. The city watch will be remade from a corrupt market into an honest craft. Gold cloaks will be trained not only to swing truncheons but to take statements, preserve evidence, and escort circuit judges instead of intimidating petitioners. I will establish an office of complaints where citizens can lodge grievances against watchmen without having to pass through the very barracks where beatings happen. Any complaint will be read at the weekly court. Watch captains will stand and answer. I do not expect saints in cloaks, but I will not tolerate wolves dressed as shepherds. The watch's pay will be regular, for irregular pay is the handmaiden of extortion. Their barracks will be inspected for cleanliness and their rolls for ghosts. Men paid who do not exist. A watch that smells of SWT and cabbage is bearable. A watch that smells of fear is not. Guilds in the city and in great towns will be asked to renew their charters in language boiled down to purpose. A guild that keeps standards, trains apprentices, and polices fraud will enjoy protections in law. A guild that exists to fence price and bully new craftsmen will be sharply corrected. Apprentices will be protected by written contracts that specify training, hours, board, and term. Beating a child into a trade makes a sullen craftsman and a twisted adult. Journeymen will be permitted to travel in search of work without paying tolls on guild roads. Masters who bribe gate guards to keep out competition will see their charters suspended. The Crown's interest is not to coddle one guild, but to ensure that work is done well, that tools are true, and that a loaf weighs what it claims on the board that hangs above the bakery door. Education without vanity will be our quiet rebellion against ignorance. I will fund reading schools and markets and sept houses for children from 8 to 12 winters, taught by septas and by retired soldiers with a knack for patience, taught letters enough to read a posted edict and numbers enough to keep a tally. In the north, where septs are scarce, we will use longhouses and keep kitchens and the Godswood's edge. We will pay literate free folk to teach if they will, for pride is a better wage than charity in those woods. No child will be beaten for confusion, only for cruelty. The Citadel will be invited to send teachers for more advanced instruction in measurement, herb lore, and the basics of the law so that every circuit court can recruit clerks from the people, not pluck them only from Old Town steps. I have no wish to make philosophers. I wish to make citizens who cannot be cheated by a crooked tally. We will found a royal gazette to carry edicts, prices, ship departures, court decisions, and public work schedules on one sheet each moon. This will be posted and read aloud in markets, at the quays, in the shadow city of Sunspear, and in Winterfell's yard. The gazette will not be a broadsheet for flattering poets. It will be a chalkboard made ink. Those who can read will read. Those who cannot will hear. In the absence of paper, rumor rules. With a little paper, the truth has a chance. Justice cannot rest solely on roving circuits. I will establish permanent borough courts in cities and larger towns, staffed by resident magistrates chosen from those who served with honor on circuits, sworn to a 3-year term and removable for cause, not for convenience. Appeals will be limited and swift. A life spent in court is a life not lived. For the poor, I will fund a small corps of advocates, call them crown helpers, drawn from scribes and septons who will counsel accused men and women so that silence does not convict and ignorance does not confess. I will institute the writ of release. If a person is held longer than a fortnight without charge in any jail, the jailer must present the prisoner to a magistrate on pain of losing his post. No lord's dungeon will be beyond this writ. If he protests, the writ will be nailed to his gate and read in his hall. Punishment must speak to the crime. For petty theft driven by hunger, we will prefer fines, labor, and, if the thief is a child, placement with a guild for training. For fraud, we will require restitution times 2, with a brand for the worst so markets can protect themselves. For rape and murder, the penalties will be public and severe, and no lord's name will shield his son from the gallows. For slaving, a crime against the realm's soul, the penalty will be life at hard labor in the roads, and works core under an overseer who believes that dignity can survive shame, but only if the hand repairs what it broke. Where a victim wishes to be heard, we will hear them before we pass sentence, not to feed spectacle but to measure harm. The faiths of the realm will serve as bridges rather than as barricades. I will fund infirmaries at major septs provided they accept patients without regard to confession and keep records of medicines used and outcomes so that chirurgeons and septas can learn from failures, not hide them. I will give the silent groves of the north a simple grant, seedling heart trees where they have been cut, and a stipend to the caretakers who keep the groves free of refuse and encroaching building. The red priests, whose flames burn both healing and hubris, will be given leave to preach but not to pronounce trial by fire. When prophecy rises like a fever, I will cool it with work. Gods that care for men do not despise bread. I will set our foreign posture with 3 lines. Trade that fattens docks in peace, intelligence that sees danger when it still wears a cloak, and diplomacy that speaks plainly enough to be understood even by those who hate me. With bravos I have already set a path. With Pentos and Tyrosh we will agree harbor dues and fair courts. With Lys and Mir we will tie access to our keys to honest manifests free of human cargo. With Qohor, famed for its steel, I will offer iron and timber for the tempering secrets their smiths guard. Even if they refuse, the asking honors their craft and opens a door. With Norvos, a city of bells and stern gods, I will send envoys who can listen as well as speak, proposing a pilgrim's safe conduct for their priests along our roads if they, in turn, pledge their merchants good behavior in our ports. With the Summer Isles we will make a pact of timber for spices and pearls, escorted convoys for mutual defense, and an exchange of shipwrights. The stepstones will be made less hospitable to pirates by the establishment of 2 anchorages, one at Tarth, one at Dragonstone, where our cutters can refit quickly while the master of ships lays nets of patrol patterns that catch more than spray. Admiralty law will be codified so that salvage is rewarded but theft is punished. A ship abandoned to STO. RM or rock is a prize only when all reasonable effort has been made to save her crew and when a court has certified her abandonment. Wreckers who light false fires will hang. The Isle Lords who turn away and pretend not to see will be fined in ships, not in coin. Pilots will be licensed and held to standard charts maintained by a new office in the Navy. A pilot who strikes a known rock through negligence loses his license and his livelihood. I want our coast spoken of as safe in storm and strict in law. Fear of the gallows is a poor sailor. Certainty of rules is a steady one. A new corps must be made if roads are to outlast speeches. The roads and works corps will be uniformed not in gold but in dust. They will be organized into companies with foremen chosen for skill, not for the eloquence of their cousins. They will have access to standard designs for bridges and culverts adapted to each region's soil and water. They will contract with guild masons and carpenters but retain their own basic crews so work does not stop when a guild pulls up stakes at the first rain. They will keep tools sharpened, wheels greased, and wages honest. I will visit a worksite each season and stand in the dust while the foreman shows me what the survey promised and what the river actually did. You cannot govern a road from a throne room. The army must be bound to a clear code of war. I will publish articles that define how soldiers are to treat civilians, that forbid foraging without pay, that punish the burning of fields and the looting of churches and shrines. Quartermasters will keep receipts, and any soldier who pays for goods with a badge instead of coin will be flogged and dismissed for a second offense. Officers will be promoted for merit. Those who lose their tempers in battle will not be given more men to ruin. The royal line will train for winter and for mud. A battlefield is rarely a tapestry of heroism and often a wrestling pit of hunger and cold. We will standardize shields, spears, bows, and arrows so that supply can replenish any company with any store. Archers will be taught to pick targets. Officers, standard bearers, engineers, not to aim into crowds in the hope of glory's blind. I would rather win by craft than by pile. Veterans will not be discarded to beg in alleys with stumps where legs once were. Service will earn land or stipend. Where land is scarce, a veteran may choose a shop license in a crowded city with reduced fees for 3 years. We will establish hospices of the wounded in 4 cities, funded by a portion of fines and by the crown, where chirurgeons can fit men with wooden limbs, teach them new trades, and give them purpose that is not only remembering. Men who have seen hell are poor company for silence. We will employ them as watch trainers, as road guards, as messengers who know how to ride through fear. The realm owes them more than thanks on a windy day. I have spoken of dragons as rule and ritual. Now I will make it law. The dragon accords will be written and posted. Each flight will be recorded. Time, purpose, route, outcome, and any incident. Pasture land used for feeding will be compensated if fire or fright scatters a herd. The crown will pay fair price and the dragon keepers will owe the farmer an apology, spoken plainly, not carried by a clerk. If a dragon is wounded by a fool with a bow, the fool will be punished, but I will not turn a village into cinders to find one archer. I will designate flight corridors above rivers and coastlines where possible, away from crowded markets. Dragons will not fly at night over cities. When they are used in war, they will burn engines and empty fields, not homes, and I will ride to see with my own eyes that those orders are kept. If I break my own accords, I will speak of it and submit to the Great Council's censure. To command fire and submit to law is how we will teach the realm that power kneels. Succession will be settled by rules that command grudging respect rather than applause. If I die without a living heir, the Great Council will choose among those of blood and those of merit on a list we draft while tempers are cool. The Hand will preside, the Masters and Wardens will vote, the High Septon and the Citadel's conclave will counsel without vote. A regency's limits will be written as carefully as a truce. The regents will have to go before the people each season and say what they have done. Secrecy in succession is the midwife of knives. Fosterage will be used to braid rival houses until they cannot imagine their children as hostages because they have learned to see them as children. Ravens carry messages. Riders carry presents. I will layer the old bird post with a new rider post that moves under the protection of roads and way stations. Each post house will keep fresh mounts, clean straw, a pot of broth, and a clerk with a ledger that records arrivals and departures. Royal packets will move first, but merchants may pay to send letters and small parcels. A realm that can speak to itself moves faster than any army marching blind. A thief who targets post riders will be punished as a bandit who strikes at the realm's voice. The risk register must expand beyond hunger, pestilence, rebellion, and debt. There are quieter failures that topple kingdoms. Measurement lies, corruption that becomes custom, and apathy that becomes law. To fight lies and measures, we will standardize weights and lengths. The king's stone, the queen's ell, the common span, kept in iron at the markets and the courts, brought forth whenever disputes arise. To fight corruption, we will create the Office of Royal Auditors, sworn to visit offices unannounced and to publish what they find. Auditors who demand coin for silence will be punished more severely than those they expose. To fight apathy, we will celebrate humble victories with public thanks. A mill repaired that saves a village from hunger, a bridge rebuilt that shortens a winter journey. I will the names of foremen as often as those of lords. There is also wildfire we did not make, the kind beneath our feet. Earthquakes split walls. Floods find new beds. Blights travel like whispered curses. The Mistress of Whispers will keep maps not only of plots but of hazards. Fault lines known to masons, lowlands that drown every third spring, clusters of illness that suggest tainted wells. The Master of Roads will build causeways where the survey says floods will come and then keep the ditches clear, for a ditch forgotten is a road undone. The Master of Grain will keep sacks above ground on racks. He will measure humidity with simple jars, and salt so rot does not sneak in under the smell of grain's comfort. Plague houses will be sighted upwind from markets, their refuse buried, their attendants honored, not shunned. The code of trade will be tightened around the throat of usury without choking honest credit. I will cap interest on seed loans at a rate that covers risk and no more. Lenders who charge more will lose their license to lend and will see their ledgers burned in the square by the very farmers they sought to bind. Merchants will be allowed to pool capital into joint ventures with charters that spell liability plainly, so a failed voyage does not become an excuse to seize homes. We will establish a modest insurance for convoys against piracy to encourage ships to sail under our flag. Premiums will be lower for captains who keep their ships to the convoy's discipline. The longer men live, the more they understand. Prosperity prefers rules. I will build manors into procurement. The crown must buy sacking, timber, iron, rope, stone, lime, oats, and 1,000 other common things. It will do so by open call at market, specifying quality and delivery, posting who won and why. Courtiers who whisper in my ear to advance a cousin's mill will be ignored. Courtiers who try to bribe the Master of Roads will find themselves repairing ditches for a season with a shovel and a sunburn for pay. Gifts to officials will be treated as bids in disguise and declined, or if forced upon them, deposited at the orphan house to be turned into food and blankets. A queen who takes no gifts teaches her servants that their hands can stay clean. I will reshape the stepstones not only with cutters but with patience. Pirates gather where trade passes and law avoids. We will set up markets at our anchorages that sell rope, pitch, sailcloth, dried fish, bread, and water at prices that do not invite desperation to turn to theft. Captains who have eaten in our markets will hesitate to raid our convoys. Men who can buy spare rope do not cut it from a victim's rigging. We will encourage the summer isles to join us in patrols and in market making. A sea that pays even its middling men in honest coin is a sea that resists the romance of lawless profit. I will bring women into the work where the work does not ask for a man's beard but for a mind and a spine. In Dorne, inheritance honors daughters. Without overturning every custom at once, I will open offices to women where custom allows and ability demands. A Mistress of Whispers is a role already fit. A Master of Grain can be a woman's hands. Magistrates can sit as well in skirts as in breeches. Widows' rights will be clarified. A portion of land and movable goods cannot be seized by a husband's brothers, while documents are argued over in distant courts. A lord who keeps a widow in limbo to steal her bread will be invited to a court he will not enjoy. I have spoken of manumission as a moral banner. I will make it a working court. Any person who sets foot in Westeros and seeks a manumission hearing will receive it within 7 days before a magistrate. Traders who claim debt bondage will have to prove a contract written and witnessed. If they cannot, the person walks away free and the trader pays a fine for attempting to import chains to my land. The port guards will be trained to spot hidden compartments and to ask the right questions in the right accents so fear does not hide in silence. Merchants who obey will find our harbors swift. Those who cheat will find our prisons just. I will not starve art while feeding bellies. A realm that sings less each year grows narrower. We will fund troop licenses and repair playhouses burned by war. We will commission ballads that celebrate not only battles but bridges, not only dragons but dredges. Poets who flatter me will be gently mocked by my own patronage of those who write of wheelwrights and fisherwives. A child who knows a tune walks home less afraid. I did not come here to rule over quiet and gray. We will measure health without superstition. The chirurgeon's corps will track fevers, flux, and pox by simple tallies posted monthly. Cases, recoveries, deaths, places. When a cluster flares, the Master of Roads will slow traffic into and out of the afflicted ward and arrange for bread to be brought to doorways to reduce the press of bodies at markets. We will teach boiling of water and encourage the lime washing of latrines and wells. The City Watch will be tasked to find those who dump refuse where water runs. We will not scream at pestilence while feeding it with filth. The 18 months will culminate in a festival that is not a carnival of coin but a thanksgiving for survival and for progress. We will mark a new calendar day. The Day of Ledgers, when offices present summaries of what was promised and what delivered. I will stand and read my own ledger aloud, where I held my accord and where I failed it, where the dragon flew and why, where the bread ran short and how we answered. The hand will speak after me, and the wardens after him. There will be laughter at our expense. There will be groans. There will be soft claps when numbers align with memories. If the realm learns to expect this each year, then rulers who come after me will think twice before lying in the setting sun. Metrics will be sharpened into tool, as not fetishes. I will not chase a number into cruelty. I will ask what a number means. If ship days at sea rise but pirate attacks do not fall, then we are rowing in circles. If case backlogs shrink but acquittals vanish, then we are condemning too easily. If bread prices hold steady but lines at the Queen's kitchens lengthen, then wages are failing even as loaves seem stable. If road miles increase but post riders do not travel faster, then we are building badly. Numbers are the bones. Stories are the flesh. We must carry both. Scenario work must stretch further still. Imagine that a dragon is lost to a poisoned arrow on a foggy coastline. Grief will strike me like winter water, but policy must walk. The remaining dragons will be grounded for a season except for reconnaissance above rivers and seas. The dragon keepers will dissect the incident, test antidotes on goats, and adjust flight patterns and altitudes. I will speak to the realm of loss not as a legend but as a leader who understands that mourning cannot be an excuse to thrash. The realm will see a queen who does not confuse revenge with justice, even for those she loves like children. Imagine a false prophet arises in the capital preaching that the famine is divine punishment for a queen's pride. He gathers followers with songs and salt bread stolen from stores. If we answer with soldiers first, we will grow the very martyrdom he seeks. We will answer with food lines that operate visibly, with clerics of the seven and caretakers of the old gods speaking in the same square about duties to feed the hungry. We will invite the prophet to speak at a great hearing. We will let him talk himself out of argument before the court of common sense. If he incites violence, the City Watch will separate and detain his captains, not bludgeon his crowds. A faith tested by bread holds longer than a faith defended by clubs. Imagine a great house's ledgers prove to be lies piled atop lies. Roads unpaid, levies misused, seed loans stolen and sold. The Lord feigns illness and blames a steward. The code will treat the house as a corporate person. The steward will be tried for crimes, the Lord will be tried for negligence, and the house will be fined and placed under receivership for 1 year, with royal clerks managing its tithes and repairs while the heir learns the craft of stewardship under the master of coin. This avoids humiliation without avoiding accountability. The nobility will grumble that the crown eats their bread. They will taste that the crown bakes what it takes. Imagine that the Iron Bank grows cold and calls in debts early, angered by our tariffs or our sermons. We will not panic. We will convene the guilds and major houses and issue domestic bonds, a promise to repay in grain and customs dues with modest interest. We will pledge to accept those bonds for taxes at a ratio that keeps them liquid. We will open our ledgers to the investors so that they can see we are not selling puff and powder. Bravos respects plans that survive scrutiny. So do lords who have seen too many airy promissory notes pop like soap bubbles in the sun. Imagine that rumors spread of hidden wildfire caches, more than even the alchemists admit, beneath workshops and inns. We will not trust the guild that made the Kraken to find all the Kraken's eggs. We will assemble teams of sappers, alchemists under guard, and dragon keepers with noses trained to the scent. Each cache found will be inventoried, its location posted to the Mistress of Whispers and the Master of Roads, and its destruction certified by 2 officers under oath. Those who planted them will be offered exile to monasteries where they can boil medicines instead of doom. Those who resist will be judged for reckless endangerment of the realm and sentenced accordingly. Kings who ignore the old sparks learn new fires. In the 2nd year, should we have the breathing room, We will begin to restore the inland waterways that are the veins of the Reach and the riverlands. Modest locks, cleared weirs, and bank reinforcements turn a trickle into a trade route. A barge that carries 20 carts worth of grain without destroying a road is a silent blessing. We will employ veterans as lock keepers and fishermen as river pilots, and we will tie fees to maintenance so that keepers are rewarded for preventing rot. I will watch a barge leave a country quay and arrive at a city dock and feel more satisfaction than any court song can bring me. Jon will keep to his character. Quiet, stubborn, allergic to pomp. He will travel more than he sits, to the north where his name still warms cookfires and to the stormlands where his plain judgments cut through salt and thunder. He will settle disputes with what he carries in him rather than with what follows him. There will be lords who resent all this talk of ledgers and roads and bowls and writs. They will whisper that a queen who was born across the sea cannot understand these lands. Jon will smile, the kind of tired smile a man gives a storm he has already seen twice, and he will ask them what their people need in winter. If they answer anything but bread, justice, and safe roads, he will wait until they hear their own foolishness. I will keep a small circle of counselors who are not tempted by proximity to mistake intimacy for influence. A fishmonger's wife from the docks who tells me when the price of mackerel predicts trouble. A maester who is not offended by the idea that a woman can read a ledger. A priest who laughs. A free rider who knows where the road ruts test a cartwheel to braking. A foreman whose hands shake when he holds a cup because he will not stop working when the sun says stop. These voices will not replace my counsel. They will tune it. Too many rulers listen only to the music they ordered and miss the drum of hooves that comes without invitation. I will keep discipline over my temper by ritual. Before I sign an order that inflicts pain, I will read a statement of its intended effect, the measure by which we will know if it worked, and the means by which we will reverse it if it does not. Before I mount a dragon in anger, I will say aloud the rules I wrote, to shame my heat with my own cold words. If I cannot live with my own rules, I do not deserve the throne I sit. We will attend to forests, because a realm that eats its woods for one winter starves itself for 10. The royal foresters will be tasked to mark cutting tracks, to replant where stumps outnumber saplings, and to keep charcoaling to seasons when air is still and villages downwind can be warned. Lords who strip hillsides bare will be required to pay for terracing and for planting deep-rooted shrubs that keep soil from sloughing into streams that then drown fields. The master of ships will count not only hulls but the trees that will be hulls in 15 years. A navy that expects miracles from barren slopes is a navy that has begun to tell itself bedtime stories. We will temper hunting law into fairness. Royal forests will remain, but the penalties for taking a deer to feed a family will be fines and labor, not rope. Poachers who kill for profit will face harsher rules and may be offered service in forest patrols if they show remorse and skill that can be turned to stewardship. The crown's deer do not outnumber the crown's children. We will remember which count matters. We will place the citadel in right relation to the realm's needs. I respect its stores of knowledge and its craft at healing, but I will not accept drift toward a monopoly on counsel. I will fund an academy in King's Landing to train clerks, surveyors, and engineers in practical arts, drawing on maesters who wish to teach in the capital, foremen who can lecture on mud, and shipwrights who can describe in words what they do with hands. The citadel may scoff. They will come to respect results when roads last and bridges stand in flood. I will invite the free folk not merely to settle but to teach. Their winter wisdom, how to build windbreaks that do not rob fields of sun, how to store meat without salt when salt is dear, how to read a sky that means more in the north than banners do in the south, is a treasury for a realm that pretends winter is a southern story. We will set up winter schools at the Gift's Edge led by free folk with northern stewards, and we will pay them like any other teacher. Respect travels better than orders. I will standardize measures we take of ourselves. A census need not be a yoke. It can be a promise to know who lives under my protection. Every 5 years we will count households, fields under plow, herds, mills, boats. We will not count to squeeze but to plan. A tax adjusted to reality offends less than a tax kept the same when reality has fled. The census will also record orphans and widows to inform the Crown's aid. It will record veterans to ensure their stipends find them. It will record craftsmen to invite them to bids for public work. People exist even if rulers do not count them. Rulers who do not count struggle to serve. We will attend to the little tyrannies that grow into rebellions. A toll gate that charges twice. A harbor master who demands coin for an inspection not performed. A septon who refuses to baptize a child because the mother cannot pay a fee. All these are wars in miniature. The circuits will investigate not only grand crimes but petty extortions. And I will take pleasure in dismissing a petty man from a petty post with the same gravity with which I demote a lord. Every boot removed from a neck is one less spear we will meet later. The Navy will develop a riverine arm for the trident's web and for the Mandar's curves. Shallow draft boats with oars and small sails, able to carry 50 men or a dozen carts worth of grain, will make raids costly for bandits and make famine less likely to win. River Marines will be trained to fight from banks and decks with equal calm. Their officers will learn the art of landing where the enemy is not watching and of leaving when they wake. A realm with water in its bones must fight and feed itself on water as well as on land. I will set aside a queen's purse for mercy that cannot wait. There are moments when a clerk's careful pace is a cruelty, when a fire leaves a family with ash for blankets, when a flood takes a village's seed, when a widow cannot pay a midwife. The purse will be used sparingly and recorded publicly afterward so that it does not become a private river where favorites drink. I will carry coin when I travel and the authority to use it in small sums without a retinue of scribes. If I pass a beggar, I will not imagine that my looking upon him is alms enough. The realm is not a sermon. It is a stew that must be stirred. I will insist that every noble hall post the realm's code in its great room and that every bannerman can recite its bones. A knight who can list the tourney rules should be able to list the crimes as well. When honor becomes a matter only of lances and cloaks, villagers learn to fear banners. Honor must be the name for keeping your ditches clear, paying your tithes honestly, protecting your tenants from wolves two-legged and four, and presenting yourself to the assize when summoned. I will render more scenarios because imagination is a duty. Suppose a drought grips Dorne and the storm lands at once. The aqueducts we repair will matter less than the cisterns we build and the wells we sink deeper. The master of grain will trade seed loans for water grants, tools for digging, stone for lining. The master of ships will prioritize water casks for convoys. The faith will be asked to suspend festival feasts that demand wine and meat. Piety that opens its larders will be honored. Piety that guards its cellar doors while children swoon at the river's edge will be shamed. The desert is not our enemy. Lack of preparation is. Suppose a long winter makes every promise harder to keep. The watch's stores run low. The gifts fields under snow groan. The royal reserve hemorrhages. We will hold the Great Council earlier that year and agree openly on ration tiers. Infants, pregnant women, and the ill first. Laborers on the road second, the able last. Nobles will feed their villages from their private stores before they taste meat themselves. Any lord found eating fresh game while his people starve will be invited to a table in the square with his people so he can share openly or starve publicly. Winter is honest. It does not care for courtesy. Suppose the Red Keep itself becomes a nest of faction, with the master of coin and the master of grain at each other's throat over a delayed payment or a miscounted shipment, and courtiers snickering in corners while our work slows. I will move meetings out of rooms thick with incense and into warehouses that smell of burlap and mice. Arguments sound different when standing on the boards where sacks will sit. I will require that each dispute be resolved with a joint ledger signed by both parties and placed into the Gazette for the realm to see. The surest way to quiet quarrels is to light them in public and remove the shadows where pride grows like mold. Suppose I fall ill for a season. The regency rules I have insisted upon will be tested. Jon will sit the chair not as a usurper but as a steward with limits. No new wars without the council's vote. No new taxes without the Great Council's assent. No dragon flights without 2 signatures. No executions without my seal unless the writ of release demands swiftness to prevent abuse. The realm will see that we prepared not for my immortality but for the crown's continuity. A ruler who cannot imagine absence is already absent where it matters. I will put my own house under the law. The Queen's Guard will have their own code. Truth in reports, intervention when an officer abuses a citizen even if that officer outranks them, and dismissal for those who use the Queen's name to extract favors. The royal kitchens will be audited like any granary. The palace will pay its water and sewer fees like any great house. If my household cheats the city will learn to cheat me back. I will see to festivals because people are not fields. There will be a day of lanterns along the coasts when the lantern towers we build are lit together, and sailors' widows will read the names of the lost and be given stipends without begging. There will be a river's blessing in spring when the first barges depart, and children will toss flowers, not trash, into the water, and the city will organize cleanups of banks as a matter of civic pride. There will be a harvest oath day when lords swear to bring tithes honestly, and the master of grain will swear in turn to treat them fairly. Ceremonies are not fripperies if they teach duties. I will guard against the creeping habit of extraordinary measures that never end. Rationing will have sunset clauses tied to measurable thresholds in the reserves. Emergency powers will require renewal by the Great Council. Courts will return to ordinary sessions after assizes conclude. A realm that lives forever in emergency becomes a garrison without a barracks to sleep in. We will be brave enough to return to normal when normal hurts less than fear. I will revisit the assize of winter after its first sitting and change it if it becomes a stage for vengeance. It must punish named crimes with proof. It must not swell to swallow petty quarrels dressed up as war's necessities. If I sense in myself the thrill of punishing, I will excuse myself for a day and read letters from mothers who want sons home. A ruler's spine stiffens with duty. It bends with temptation. I will keep my spine busy with the former. I will keep close the thought that the realm is not a fable with a moral, but a kitchen with many cooks and fires that must be tended. When someone tries to tell the story of my reign in a single sentence, she was the queen of dragons, she broke the wheel, she built roads, she fed the city, she failed at peace. I will smile and know that the truth is in the ledgers and the bridges and the bowls and the quiet walks of women and men who no longer leap at shadows and alleys. That is the only kind of story that can be lived in, not only listened to. And I will talk to my hand in words he understands. John, once each month, you will tell me 3 things that hurt the realm that most in that month and 3 things that helped it most. You will bring me the names of people who did them, not titles. If I have forgotten a promise, you will remind me. If I have broken one, you will show me where to stand to say so and how to fix it. If you ever find yourself defending me instead of the law, you will lay down the pin. If I ever find myself loving your counsel less than I love applause, I will tell you, and you will look at me with the same steady eyes you use for storms. The strength of this government is not my dragons. It is our habit of speaking plainly and acting quickly. I will end this stretch of speaking as I began, with the simplest of vows, that every great design will be judged by the weight of a loaf, by the time a letter takes to reach a farm, by the speed with which a grievance can be heard, by the clarity of the rules under which a ship sails into our harbor, by the steadiness of a lantern in a storm, by the rate at which a soldier's stipend arrives, by the number of bridges that stand through flood, by the breadth of a road measured in carts able to pass without fighting, by the number of widows whose tears are dried because they were helped without humiliation, and by the absence of heads on spikes. If we are to be remembered at all, let it be for the small things done relentlessly and honestly until they are no longer noticed because they have become the air and the bread and the water of a realm that finally knows how to live.